All right, we interrupt your regularly scheduled monster hunting for the United Hearthstone League. I am Wicked Good, and I am here with guest caster and player Rod Johnston, filling in this week. Thank you for joining me, Rod. How you doing?
Not too bad, sir. How about you?
I am fantastic, and I am psyched. We have an amazing match for you this week. We have Andrew is living from the Happy Hearthstone versus Red Knight from the Dad Legend community. And it looks like we are in for a smork fest. We have hunters, we have rogues on both ends. We have a hunter and an even paladin, and then we got some Shutterwalk nonsense and an Uther of the Ebon Blade. So I am excited. I don't know about you.
I'm excited too because I looked at that paladin list and I didn't even think of anything besides even paladin. I was like, oh, okay, we got an even paladin, and then I just thought it's even paladin, but then you were like, oh, look at that list again. I'm like, oh crap, it's a control list. So we have. I'm like, I didn't know control paladin existed. I had seen a list on Hearthstone top decks like today or yesterday, and I'm like,
yeah.
But as you know, and I know, what legend players are posting on the ladder for like playing at the high legend right now, it doesn't necessarily always mean the same as what us normal people are playing on the ladder. So
yeah,
it's interesting that he brought it. So
yeah, and I know that Red Knight had posted on Twitter, the Smack Talk had started early today, the in for a Smork Fest, and I don't know if Andrew was planning on bringing this before and he was trying it out, or if he was trying to be a little bit defensive. We'll see how it works. It is a very interesting list, and we will get there when we get there. So, right, and Red Knight is 0-1, having lost to Alieri last week, and Andrew is 1-0, and I actually don't remember who he beat
Daniel. He beat my son last week.
Yeah, your Hearthstone Storm Rage. Words. Casting involves words. There we go.
Speaking English. I'm not going to say the line, but I'm just thinking of lines of Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction. So
yeah.
So
let's just take a second and go over the rules for the league in case you're joining us for the first time. Again, this is best of 5 standard conquests for each match, but the unique thing about the United Hearthstone League is that each player, once they've played, we have 3-week sets, and once they've played a class in one of those 3 weeks, they cannot play it again until the beginning of the next round. So the classes that both players have selected last week are not available this week. That also means that there's no ban. So they will, in order to win the match, each player has to win with all 3 of the decks that they brought this week. And this is the second week is when you start to get a little bit into the head games a little bit, trying to look at what your opponents brought, what they've already, what kind of tendencies they have, especially if you're not familiar with their style. I mean, you talk about, because you're playing in it, right? Like what's your thought going into like week 2, ahead of your match and trying to figure out what to bring?
So week 1 is usually easier because you often have an idea and you have access to all 9 classes. But I struggled week 2 going back and forth whether I was going to bring Druid or Mage this week because I was like, oh, I don't want to leave. Like, you don't want too many of your strong classes in 1 week and then a weaker lineup the next week because of that. So it's really, really important that you spread out your classes, that you do everything in a way that makes it so you always have the best chance to win. It is a mind game. You're completely right because you go, what is my opponent going to bring? Do I feel comfortable bringing against my opponent? It is challenging, and I think it's one of the best aspects of this league because it makes you go, it's unpredictable stuff, right? I don't think most leagues are going to have Shutterwalk and like craziness like we did last week.
Yeah.
And
you're not seeing Mildruid in most tournaments on stream. That's not a thing that's happening, and that's something I got to cast earlier in the week. So yeah, it definitely, and it's one of the things as casting and as a spectator last season, like one of the things that's really the most fun about this league is you just get to see, you're going to get to a point where you're going to have to play the worst class and you're gonna have to figure out Am I bringing Cthulhu Warrior? Am I going to bring Evolve Shaman? This was last season in the old meta, but so what do you bring for those worst classes? But we should probably stop talking about the matches and get into it.
It looks like they're prepared. Yep.
So we're going to let the players get into game, and then we will bring you that match momentarily. So what would you start out with? As each one of the players, like what would you want to start with given these decks? So you have the odd rogue, and the even paladin and the Shudderwalk Shaman from Red Knight, and you have the odd rogue, the face hunter, and the control paladin from Andrew.
My strategy is usually bringing the deck I'm least comfortable with, because you get the most chances to play that deck. Because if you're real confident in a deck, it gives you that chance to like just go in and win right away with it. So, and we are playing. It's going to be Andrew on his Odd Rogue and Red Knight on his Shudderwalk Shaman.
Go right to the Shaman. So this is an elemental Shaman. It runs Kalamos and Hagatha and Shudderwalk at the top end, and then we see the Odd Rogue from Andrew with a bunch of 3-drops and drawing the Ironbeak Owl and no 1-drops to start off with, which is given that the Odd Rogue really wants to smork, that's not necessarily what you see, and ironically it's the Shaman from Red Knight that does have the 1-drop in the Firefly. Now the 1-drop does come into the hand for Andrew, but probably hero powering is going to be what you want to do rather than just dropping an Atris Veteran.
Yeah. So what's so strong about Odd Rogue is the dagger up into the Hench Clan Thug. The Hench Clan Thug is quietly one of the most powerful cards for aggressive decks in the entire set. I don't know if anyone hardly talked about it. I know you and Andrew did your giant card review, but man, this card gets going, and it's very like similar to another card Andrew's holding right now, the Vicious Fledgling.
Yeah.
It gets out there and it is an instant kill, or it's an instant silence.
Yeah,
it
just gets out of hand so quickly. And you see it right here where Andrew attacks with the weapon, gets a Hench Clan up to a 4/4 for 3, and doesn't even have to freeze the rest of his board to do it, but Red Knight does have the answer immediately in the Hex.
Yeah.
So that will take care of this one. But Andrew does have the other one and the Vicious Fledgling in his hand, should he so choose. He's got a lot of options here. Yeah. He can do a combo with the SI7. He can get the Fledgling out. And that's what he just decides to do is play the Dire Mole and the Fledgling to keep the Frog company. And this Tar Creeper will keep those minions at bay for Red Knight along with the Flame Elemental. Not sure if he doesn't really have any sort of an elemental that he's setting up, but he does have the Hot Spring Guardian and the Nightmare Amalgam in hand. But this Ironbeak Owl will answer the taunt, and there goes Flappy Bird.
Oh, and here he comes.
Fury Snap Pit.
The options were barely even.
It doesn't matter. It was Wind Fury and two options that were not Wind Fury. That's all that matters.
This is how quick it was. I didn't even get to the second one because it was on the screen for so little time. Andrew's just like, yep. I kind of... The one thing I might have liked from Andrew was putting that Archer's Veteran extra attack on Flappy Bird before doing that. But this Flappy Bird is going to get hexed, I think.
Well, he's already seen one hex. I mean, we can see with Caster Vision that the second one is in hand for Red Knight, but having already seen the one hex, I mean, we can see the frog on board. It's reasonable for Andrew to not play around that. I mean, he is going to get punished by it, but that's just kind of the cost of doing business in this case. And Red Knight tried to figure out how he wants to answer this board, because just hexing the Flappy Bird, the Vicious Fledgling, is going to give Andrew the green light to be able to develop again. Bloodlust is not really going to do it. The Nightmare Amalgam isn't doing much. He's actually going to Lightning Storm this board. And he's going to hope that he can get the three damage on the Vicious Fledgling, and he does. So goes for the 50-50 on the Lightning Storm and is rewarded, but there's another Vicious Fledgling in the hand for Andrew.
Andrew doesn't know, but like Red Knight's hand is really kind of awkward right now. He has the Hot Spring sitting there, but he's got a Hex, he's got a Bloodlust. the Nightmare is, I think he's got it in there for the elemental activation.
I would imagine, yeah.
Yeah. And so he's sitting here, and he's going to have to use his resources really, really sparsely because he does not have any card draw. This deck is running no card draw, so he doesn't have the totem in it.
And there's a Vicious Fledgling for Red Knight, interestingly, which this deck does not normally run.
Yeah.
Normally, he is running the Bloodlust, so this is clearly a more aggressive... It's still a mid-range shaman, but it's more aggressive in that way. And the Vicious Fledgling is an interesting inclusion, but that is not really what he needs right now. And a Hex on a SI7 agent feels awful. I guess he's just gonna heal up the silenced Tar Creeper and take out one of these Dire Moles, but that's not really a very strong turn.
The list kind of reminds me like if Tempo Rogue and like Spiteful Summoner had a baby, because there's like a lot of these mid-rangey cards that are going in a lot of the Tempo Rogue kind of lists. Like he's running the Corpse Taker and Serenite Chain Gangs, stuff that you kind of associate with Tempo Rogue, and he's running a Kaloseth, but then he's got stuff like, Bloodlust, but not that many spells. He's not running any healing.
Yeah, usually healing is an issue. Usually you don't run spells in a deck like that because you expect you're going to get them from Hagatha. And you want to have minion density to be able to get value off of Hagatha. But this Vicious Fledgling is probably going to get a Hex. You can already see Red Knight mousing over the card. Yeah. And then I would expect that one of these elementals is going to come down to set up the Calamos for next turn.
Yep. And Andrew is quickly running out of resources himself. He's got the Hench Clan Thug here, but I think he's going to have a hard time just taking this board back for a real, control of the game right now.
Yeah, the problem is that he's just having to address all of these taunts. Yep. And, all of these 2-damage weapon attacks, which are really the strength of Odd Rogue, are going into taunts rather than going into face, and that's keeping Red Knight in this game. And this Calamos is going to answer this board, presumably along with the 1/1 attack from the Tar Creeper in order to take out this Hench Clan Thug.
My favorite part, and I did it week 1 against Breezy, was that when you run Calamos and then you play a elemental before Shudderwock, you get the same effect again. So
I think it's random, actually. I was playing this deck too. I think it's random.
I wasn't sure how that worked. I kind of went YOLO in my game because I wasn't sure how it worked.
Yeah, because I almost always pick the board clear, and I'm pretty sure it's done 6 damage to face when I've played it. But, so
that's interesting. I don't know if they ever addressed it because it says repeat the battle cry. So the battle cry is pick an effect, right? So I guess it's.
But the battle cry is actually discovering the effect. Yeah. So this Tolvir Stone Shaper is glowing yellow. I would expect that to come down, but maybe not. But he also has, he's getting low on health. Red Knight is, and he doesn't have any. He's used up a lot of his healing already. Presumably the second Calamos could heal him, but he doesn't have that on the horizon. Yeah. But addressing this board it's starting to get, starting to run Andrew out of resources. This Tar Creeper is going to keep some of the damage from coming back the other way, but it's not going to advance the gameplay. It's not even going to take out this Tolvir Stone Shaper that's in front of him right now.
Then Andrew's going to be sitting here every turn going, it doesn't look like. And let me look at this deck again, because he's got things like Leroy. He's got. I don't see anything that's left in this deck. Maybe a Blink Fox gives him some kind of things.
He could start going for the random stuff plan. He does have Deadly Poisons in the deck also that he can use to push face, but he has to get through these taunts again. Yeah. Another Bloodlust in the hand for Red Knight is, again, not really what he needs. He is going to be able to get the Vicious Fledgling down, and Andrew's going to have to figure out a way to deal with that, but the Bloodlusts in hand right now are not going to keep him alive. And granted, he's only looking at 1 damage right now from the Tar Creeper. And this Amalgam's going to come down too. He's going to try to set up maybe successive
lethal
bloodlusts.
next turn. I mean, if he gets to, if he double lethals next turn, I think he's going to have double bloodlust next turn. He could have lethal, and so let's look at this. It would be because you get +3, so it'd be +6, so it'd be 6, 9.
Yeah, one of them takes
18.
out the Tar Creeper, and then that's exact lethal at that point. So that could be it.
That's lethal if he sees it, and it looks like he's going over that first one.
Yeah, he's doing the math and trying to figure that out. And there's the first bloodlust. And there's the second one, and then the taunt totem will take out the Tar Creeper. The other 3 go face.
And Flappy Bird gets +3 damage to.
Doesn't really matter at this point. So that's game 1 for Red Knight.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I like about these mid-range lists is just the ability you're producing minions every single turn, and that gives you that ability to do what he just did. Bloodlust is still one of the strongest cards in the entire game when you have a wide board, and I mean it makes Savage. It's like a way better Savage Roar, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean that's basically what it is, right? And having double bloodlust in hand, I mean, it looked like it wasn't really doing much, but when you can get enough of those little minions on the board and just keep them alive, and once the rogue had run out of steam, that's pretty much all she wrote at that point. Yeah. So, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say that's the problem with these super hyper aggressive lists, like odd hunters like that too, where it's like you can run out of steam very, very easily, and when you do, the rogue doesn't have the ability that hunter does to push 3 damage every turn regardless. They don't have the ability to go, hey, I have a hero power that is going to hit you in the face regardless. So
so we're gonna take a quick break. Just remind you that United Hearthstone League is powered by Patreon. It's where a lot of this is the community coming together to participate and give some of the resources, but there are some costs that are involved in the league and to make it as good as it is this season. And if you've been watching since last season, you know how much of an improvement this season is, having full-time casting for most of the matches, as well as all the additional content that we're putting out. So if you can go to patreon.com/UnitedHSLeague, there are multiple tiers where you can contribute. Our first patron, Jeroshio, has been kind enough to contribute to the Patreon, and we want to make sure to thank him and thank you too if you if you're kind enough to contribute and you have the means. It'll help to continue to be able to improve on the experience of the United Hearthstone League and make this it's a fun event for the whole community, and we love doing it, and that helps us be able to do more of it.
It's stuff like the pack giveaways. There's like hosting costs for the podcast. There's all this stuff that none of us are getting paid here. This is just helping pay for expenses. We're here because we're fans just as much as everybody else. So.
Yeah, exactly. So what are you thinking? What are you thinking about the next match? I mean, so Red Knight's gotten that shaman out of the way. What are you thinking as far as like what you expect the players to bring for the next match?
I'm wondering if Andrew just goes back to that well and tries that rogue again, and at that point, if I am Red Knight, I kind of like leaving that paladin for last. So maybe he goes in and brings his rogue, and we just have a smart off for sure.
Yeah.
Because it looks like his rogue has a lot of the where's that damn list? There's too many lists going on. So I mean, it looks very similar to. Oh no, that is Andrews. Man, I am.
Yeah, it's tough when they're both playing the same classes, but we are in game, so we'll bring you that, and the suspense is over. Andrew will be going over to the odd hunter, and this time it'll be Red Knight on the odd rogue. And then Baku coming into hand for Red Knight.
Red Knight BMs with a golden Baku, and that's not cool.
I mean, is it BM or is it just bling, right? Like
bling. This the furry skyworm that is Baku. He needs bling bling too, right?
Yeah. So this is the start that you want as the odd rogue, putting out the dire mole right away. Andrew does have an Atris veteran that he can play this turn, or he can decide to pass. Typically, the odd hunter, I don't think really wants to interact with minions as much as it just wants to press the button as many times as it takes in order to get the other player down to 0.
As someone who prefers a lot in life to play, or in Hearthstone life to play kind of control-y decks, I have a hard time playing hunter where it's like ignore the minions and go face.
Yep.
I don't know if you know this. There is a Hearthstone deck tracker plugin that like basically makes you ignore it. Like it blocks out the minions.
So you just go face.
Yep.
That's hilarious. See, this is the kind of thing on a Mac I don't get the benefit of these kinds of plugins.
So look, this is a hard setup for Andrew already. The Red Knight's got the board, and he doesn't have any really good plays. I kind of like coining out the Eaglehorn bow and trying to start deal with the board, but man,
that feels terrible when you're doing that. But you may have to in order to get some of these other minions down because you don't have the 1-drop. Andrew's just been really at the mercy of his deck for these last 2 games where he's just not getting 1-drops. And this game he did get a 1-drop, but he got an Atris veteran, which is not really going to do anything against these four. Yeah, it has a 1 in the corner, but it's not a 1-drop per se. And then
it is. Yeah.
So he coins out sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it is if you're gonna play 2 1-drops, yes, it's fine, but it's not for anything else. And
this deadly poison is rough for Andrew right now. That is a real good pickup for Red Knight, being able to re-up the dagger and then hit face for 4 with it. His animal companion can help. Oh, jeez. So Leok is like the one bad result here. And
he would have preferred anything else.
Yeah. That's really because Huffer would be fine to take out the dire mole and still have a 4-1. If you got Misha, obviously a 4-4 taunt would be great. But Leok just sitting there doing nothing with nothing else on board is rough. And the Hedge Clan Thug comes down, comes up to a 4-4. Leok gets taken out by the weapon, and these minions are starting to get out of control. Andrew does have an Unleash the Hounds he could use if he chooses. That might be the one saving grace. It looks like that's what he's going to go for.
So this is going to take out the Thug, but then Red Knight has this Fungal Mancer
Sergeant to push a little bit more damage into the Thug. So, and looks like he's planning on sending the rest of those face. Yeah. Okay.
So it's gonna. I'm not saying he was wrong, because I don't think it was a bad play, but this Fungal Mancer is going to punish him badly.
Yeah.
And Andrew is on a clock that is going to be hard to break, because now Red Knight's trading just because he can, basically. He has no... He's lower on life too. He's already at 19, and he only has 2 cards in his hand, so he's just trying to maintain and value trade so he can keep pushing that face damage.
Andrew does have options here because you have a kill command with a beast. You have an Iron Beak Owl to take one of those 3/4s and turn it back to a 1-attack minion. You can take out one of the other 1/1s. He might have a way back here, especially because he can use the Atris veteran on the Abusive Sergeant if he so chooses to take out the 2/2 Fungal Mancer as well. He might be able to stabilize, given the state of Red Knight's hand right now. It looks like that's what he's going for.
I don't like that. I would use his hero power in this case, because that's what he does.
Yeah.
Because he can't throw out that dire mole, because that dire mole is essentially 5 damage to the face.
Yeah. Yeah. So here comes the Blink Fox. We'll see what that gives. And a Houndmaster.
Oh,
good night.
With the dire mole sitting on his board. Oh, that's brutal.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
You're well known for coining the phrase "high rolling your balls off," which is not to say that Red Knight is not playing well in this series, but good lord.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. It is Hearthstone. We talked about it on Twitter the other day when the Great Orange tweeted out, and Andrew, I think he saw the train coming at his face, and he laid down and curled up into a ball and gave up.
Yeah.
Because there was not anything he could do there. But yeah, Orange tweeted out the other day he played a bunch of games and had a 30% win rate. The best players in the world just sometimes have bad days in Hearthstone.
Yeah, I mean there's nothing you can't really look at any decisions really that were, I mean, there were some that were probably 50-50, but there are no decisions in that game that seem like they're really, out of whack. It's just, when you don't draw 1-drops as one of those aggressive decks and the other player does, and then on top of that, some of the rolls that he was getting off the animal companion, like those in an aggro match where the margin is so thin, then that can sometimes be the difference.
Because I have said this before, I generally hated Pirate Warrior as a deck, but I really actually enjoyed the Pirate Warrior mirror matchup because it was you actually had to think things out and test out because you had to trade, because if you didn't, you weren't going to get, like the effects you wanted. Nefarious is saying that I think the overlays like Red Knight's classes aren't correct.
That's very possible because I was doing
this
in a fugue state. So I will look at that in a second. I may have messed that up.
No, it's okay, man. That's what Nefarious said. So
yeah, that's please subscribe to the Patreon so we can get somebody to do that for me. So we just want to remind you that there are still more matches coming this week too. We have a doubleheader for you tomorrow night. At 9 p.m. Eastern, we have Lore Master Eve from Velen's Chosen versus Versika from Hero Power. At 11 p.m. Eastern, we have Nate Wolf from Into the Wild versus Ziggy Sarah from 1600 Dust. And then on Saturday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, is the Dust Ball 2.0 with Chris Plummer versus Spivey, both from 1600 Dust. And I believe that that Ziggy will be casting with, is it with Matuna that's going to be casting?
Matuna's going to be there with him.
Yep. So that will be, that's the highlight of the season. So that's something you're absolutely not going to want to miss.
The 1600 casted matches are some of the funnest things ever. If you guys didn't see it last season, we had what was his name? Chris was playing as someone else. He had an alternate personality. He was Jaraxxus. Jaraxxus is what it was. And he played it was Chris versus Ziggy, and he played the entire game as Jaraxxus, and it was hysterical. So it's
Did he give up half his hit points for, just for full effect? I don't think he would go that far, right?
I don't think so either, but man, it was nutso because he was talking in the third person in goofy ass ways. It was just like, you guys are a riot, let me tell you what. So
yeah, so we're gonna go into the third match. Andrew still has all of his decks, and it looks like Red Knight has just the even Paladin. So Andrew is looking to get wins with all three of these decks now, and be interesting to see what he decides to go with.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for Andrew to beat this Paladin deck with his Rogue deck.
Yeah,
because the thing with Andrew's list isn't running any Fan of Knives or anything like that, and Red Knight's just going to go wide, and he's going to smash face.
Yeah.
I think,
but we're going to
that's going to be the Hearthstone.
But we are going to start off with the Paladin mirror, so at least we get to see this Paladin deck in action from Andrew.
I don't understand what this Control Paladin is. Control Paladin hasn't been a thing for a very, very long time.
Well, it runs Call to Arms, so that's really all you need as a Paladin deck. So there you go. So again,
you don't have to mention it runs Call to Arms. When you say it's a Paladin deck, it's kind of inferred, unless it's an odd Paladin. That's the only Paladin that doesn't run it. So
well, so we have a copy of Rebuke in the hand for Andrew, but it's not time for that yet. So just matching the 1/1s, and here comes a vicious Scale High, which is going to trade off this initial Silverhand recruit from Andrew, and not really anything to do yet. I mean, he does have the Call to Arms, but then again, so does Red Knight, and double Wild Pyromancers, but no way to activate them.
I wonder if he drops the Rebuke just because he knows he has the coin, and he's not going to.
No, so we may very well see coin Call to Arms.
I would if I was Red Knight.
Yep, and that is exactly what's going to happen. So we're going to get Coin Call to Arms, and then another Vicious Scalehide, and well, at least the Call to Arms messed up the ordering at least, so that's something. But
it's funny how these even Paladin lists have changed since the expansion even came out. I hit Legend with the same list as Ridiculous Hat did. That was not running the scale hides. It was running just a pure. It wasn't running the top end. A lot of these lists are running now, and it's just, I think, for long term survivability, and just I think in the mirror it's just trying to give you an edge up over your opponent. And Red Knight is saying there's only one place, and that is face.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, he's got taunts in the way. He's healing for nothing because he's at 30. And I mean, these two beetles will help. Purifier's Maul would help too if Andrew could get a taunt in the way. I mean, next turn he does have Spike Rich Steed that will help, and maybe he can look at trying to whittle away a little bit of this board with a Wild Pyromancer and a Rebuke, just to try to keep the pest population down.
So I know Call to Arms is good in every Paladin list, but I feel like in Control list it's lost a lot of its steam, because one of the big things you used to be able to do with Paladin was play Call to Arms and pull out Dirty Rats.
Yeah, and the one thing that Andrew's not running in this list is Righteous Protector, which is the thing that Call to Arms would typically help you with. And that's not available to him. Just going to play out the Wild Pyromancer with the Divine Shield and just start taking some hits into these taunts. But that's already 4, 6, 7, 8, 9 damage just on the board. Doesn't look like there's any way for Red Knight to push more of that. Looks like he may trade some of these minions off.
He's got an Avenging Wrath sitting in his hand too, which is going to be it's such an interesting, because it's generally known as a bad card, right? It's not a good card in Hearthstone.
It was a joke. It was like the first card you dusted up until like this expansion.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same reason that Mage is running all these really spells, right?
Yeah.
Because they do 1 damage at a time to like boards that have like 7 1/1s wide often.
Yeah, and if you're playing the mirror and you're playing against the decks that are spamming out 1/1s, it makes perfect sense to do something like that. So it's just going to load up this board, try to set up for this Tarim that's in hand. The Spike Ridge Steed I would expect to come out from Andrew, but he is going to... That's going to be playing right into the Tarim too, though at least that'll leave him a 2/6 behind and kind of protect his face a little bit.
I wonder if he thinks about playing Call to Arms and Rebuke or something like that, just to...
Yeah.
I mean, he's playing a Stonehill. He's going to need to get rid of as many of these minions as possible, because...
He may not have anything left that can come out of Call to Arms. I mean, he only runs two Loot Hoarders, 2 Plated Beetles, 2 Pyromancers, and a Vicious Scalehide. He may not get any value off of that Call to Arms.
Oh, yeah. That's his other deck. Man, there's too many decks. Yeah, you're right. It's like...
Oh, and these options from the Stonehill are just... This
terrible.
Is just hot garbage.
Yeah, I think that the only thing that even kind of makes sense is you can play the...
I mean, he will be able to trade 3 of these minions off, and at least the Valinor comes into hand. I don't know if the Valinor is really what he's looking for right now, but, more weapons to at least take care of some of these minions with initiative has to be a good thing.
So I'm wondering if this is enough to delay Red Knight playing the... Tarim this turn, because
he kind of does Andrew a favor at this point, right? If he plays it.
Yeah.
It looks like he's gonna play out the Beetle and Consecration and then clean up the rest of this board.
It's so weird, and it makes perfect sense, but like aggro Paladin running Consecration and quality.
Well, because they need to deal with the other the other Paladins, right? So
that. I was facing as moving up in between, like it was really between like 3 and Legend. I faced a lot of Spiteful Druids.
Yeah.
And you just need that ability to like get through anything you can and Equality does that, right? So
Oh, I guess we did still have a couple of minions left in the deck. So that
yeah,
that Scale Hive will take out the jailer, but that actually kind of helps out the Tarim eventually. This Paragon of Light with the Spike Ridge Steed, if it lives, could be a difference maker, because that lifesteal could be very relevant.
Yep, and it looks like he's going to do it, and it's going to heal for at least a little bit. Because oh no,
it's already going to get the Taunting lifesteal just by becoming the 3/3.
I don't know how much I like that.
Red Knight may not have even realized that was going to happen. I mean, I don't know that I've ever seen that card played, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's the same thing. When you see cards, how often when you're playing Arena or something like that, you put down cards like that and you go, "Oh crap! I didn't like." When you're not used to playing certain cards that have weird conditions, you often go, "Oh crap!" It's just like if you ever play a Call to Arms and then play a spell right after because you forgot that you have Wild Pyromancers in your deck.
Yeah, and it looks like Andrew may try to clean up this board with Consecration and Rebuke.
Yeah,
and that's going to clean up this entire board. It is going to give Red Knight 6 armor.
Why didn't he trade first? Oh, because the Consecration doesn't get it. Okay, I was thinking he was So.
Oh, he's not even going to deal with the Tarim. He's just going to leave the Tarim on board. He could have used the Rebuke in order to get the Tarim off, but he's not gonna bother. But this Avenging Wrath will clean up this board. I
don't know if I liked what Red Knight did. Like, I don't think he's putting his foot on the gas hard enough, and I think that terrain was played too early in it.
Yeah, it could come back to bite him, and this Spike Ridge Steed. Oh, there's Tyrion.
Yeah.
I mean, Andrew may be a little bit nervous about Tyrion just because presumably Red Knight is running Spellbreakers.
Yeah.
So a Tyrion at that low life total is not as safe as you would like to think that it is. I mean, we can see from the list that he's actually not.
Yeah.
But it would be reasonable for Andrew to assume that he is.
Yeah, and it's this awkward situation. So he's going to play the Tyrion, and if this survives, which it's not going to unless this Avenging Wrath just goes all face.
Which is also kind of fine as far as Red Knight's concerned, too.
Yeah, it's going to be in a very, very... Red Knight just picked up a Knife Juggler, which means he's going to be able to... he's just trying to go wide and get this damage across here and...
Get the Ooze to take care of the weapon from the Tyrion.
Yep.
Equality, not really super helpful. The Stonehill could get... Is there a Lifesteal taunt? There's that 1/6, right?
Yeah. So I think maybe he takes...
The Chain Gang makes perfect sense here. That's pretty much just going to block out the rest of this damage.
Because if he had known he's not running... If he knew he wasn't running taunts in the list, I think that maybe he would have put the Spike Ridge Steed on, but going wide also stops him from knife juggling his face to death.
Yeah, I mean, well, though, realistically, if he was going to have a silence, he probably would have just used it last turn, right? Like, this Equality could be the difference.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get one juggle off of this Knife Juggler. Yeah. That if that hits a minion, then that's pretty much game. And it is. And so the two Silverhand recruits will go into the minions, and then the 3 damage is enough to finish it off, and that is a 3-0 sweep for Red Knight over Andrew is Living. And that is going to take the match.
Andrew, this is one of these things when you have these series like this where it's so much about what order you queue your decks in, unfortunately. And you just go... You never know what's going to happen and what decks your opponent's going to bring and how it's going to match up because you don't know what decks they are and just Yeah. I mean, it's. I mean, we were promised a Smorkfest and we got it. Yeah.
So, but I mean, that was, again, that would. I don't know really what you're going to be able to do. I mean, the problem is that just the decks didn't. It just feels like the decks didn't really draw enough early to be able to hold off the aggression from those decks. Um,
Yeah. So the thing with odd rogue that I like on the ladder is when you're facing slower like things like quest rogue and like priest and these things that aren't putting constant pressure on you. That's great. But when you have a deck like that you're having to trade constantly and you have no card draw because your opponent's trying to do the same thing as you, that deck just falls on its face.
yeah.
And it doesn't have things like call to arms. It doesn't have. I don't think that deck's going to be around for very much longer, and unless it gets worked out a little bit better, because it just can't handle the pace of the other super aggressive decks.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, and it's unfortunate. I mean, even the odd rogue is, it the odd rogue won one game, but in the other game we could see that if you don't get your one drops, that's just it. I mean, there's nothing you can do. You're expecting to get your one drops, and if you can't get your one drops, then what else? What do you do, right?
Yeah, it's so draw dependent, and again, I keep saying it. It's these aggro super aggressive decks. They don't have any way to get cards, draw cards. So that's why Call to Arms is the most busted card in the game, or one of them in that list, because you're going super aggressive, and you're doing something that's going, oh, just throw 3 minions on the board, and you're just going, oh crap, So
Yeah. So we're gonna be able to get them both in for an interview. So I'm gonna drop you off the call, and then I'm gonna bring you back with the other
okay, cool.
with both of the players.
Okay, cool.
So let me just move that back. Oh, that's not gonna work.
Yo, yeah. Shaman. And the thing about that deck is it's very board control very board control focused because it has no ability to go face, like with any burst anyway, besides like the eels, and then besides that, like what are your aggressive cards. So the advantage of like not doing that should be that you can run a bunch of cards that can hit people in the face really, really hard. Like as we saw, Double Bloodlust is still really strong if you have any semblance of a board. So my thought process was you want some decent value tools in case the game gets drawn out because you don't have a lot of card draw, right? And so that's where you bring in things like Shutterwalk and Calamos. And there's some pretty strong synergies with the way the deck's built with the Corpse Takers and the
Alakir,
thank you.
Yeah.
With the Battlecry. So like what will happen is if you get Changang down and then Corpse Taker down, and then later on you're playing your Shutterwalk, at least one of those is going to have, like, supposing you still have an Alakir in your deck, Wind Fury, Divine Shield, and Taunt.
Yeah.
So it's pretty strong. Like, I mean, against control, right? That's kind of like my emergency button for if I'm playing against a control deck and I just go too long.
Yeah, and it's not dependent on you having dropped an elemental before it, like Tolver Stone Shaper is, because that's the one downside of the Divine Shield and the Taunt on Tolver Stone Shapers. You have to hold on to one of those Fireflies, and if you're trying to set up something like a Bloodlust, that's not always the best idea.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Rod.
I was going to say, I think that one of the things that's impressed me the most with Shutterwalk is just using him with Calamos. It's
gross.
It's the strongest thing. I did it against Breezy week 1 where I played Calamos and cleared his board, and the next turn I did it again. And it's just like, ugh. And with the ability to go Bloodlust like you did, it's just so strong.
Yeah, and I knew, especially when I saw, so it was great, when I saw that Andrew was bringing Hunter, I was like, okay, so Shaman's good, because I can just stick a board better than he can, and then Bloodlust can just carry me over to the finish line was the idea, because that was what I was really thinking, sniping the Hunter, and then he queued Rogue, because Rogue in testing was terrible.
Nefarious wants to know what your victory dinner is going to be. A question from the crowd.
It's not going to be much of a dinner. It's going to be another white lager from Schlafly, a nice St. Louis brewery. Because I've already eaten dinner. I get a drink now.
Nice. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I luckily didn't have to drink heavily because the Browns didn't draft Josh Allen #1. So
congratulations! One sober decision for the Browns. I mean, that's practically Super Bowl for y'all.
Yep. So, Andrew, I want to talk about your, as my French bulldog wants to talk about it too. So I'm going to ask you this question and let it aside. So both the Rogue and the Hunter deck, that is my big problem, those decks. And I know you play a lot of aggro. It's just when you run out of card draw like that and you just like top decking, it feels real bad, man. It's just like, and I know because I've done it enough. It's just like, man, I wish these decks had card draw. So.
Yep, I was sitting there realizing that Blink Fox was my only out deck, getting 2 cards on one turn, and so pretty much knew at that point it was going to be a wash game. But that's all right. That's one of the downsides to using that deck.
Yeah, I think all three of us separately were having different conversations about Even Paladin and the fact that like every time I try to play it, I draw all of my 8-drops and nothing else. Even when I'm not playing 8-drops in the deck, I'm drawing all my 8-drops. So yeah, it just feels terrible when you're just sitting there, especially as in an aggro versus aggro matchup, and you don't have any 1-drops and you need to get bored. And if you just fall behind on that one turn with a razor thin margin, there's not a whole lot you can do.
I definitely feel you on the Even Paladin drawing your 8-drops thing. I was literally testing this week with a version that had no 8-drops and just topped off at Tarim and the Avenging Wrath. And just the reality is you need just a random card to like just kind of pull you over the finish line because you get into top deck wars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny because I was saying during the match, I hit Legend with a list that was it stopped at Tarim basically.
The Strife Crow list, right? The original.
Yeah, it was the Strife Crow. Yeah, and that list is super strong, but then you get into those things where you're in the mirrors. It's the biggest problem, right? You don't give a crap about it when you're playing Spiteful Druids or whatever.
Oh yeah, you kill them.
Yeah, you get into that top deck thing, and you're like, oh crap, and then your opponent's top decking and you throw down a Lich King and you insta-win, right? So
yeah, and that's, by the way, what separates mid-range. That's really like the sign that it's a mid-range deck versus an aggro deck, right? Because aggro, you get into top deck wars, you lose regardless. this deck functions off being a mid-range deck and getting it wants to stress its opponent's removal and force a top deck war because you win that usually.
Yeah, I think if you're going to call one of them aggro, I think Odd Paladin is more.
Yeah, well,
no, that's what I'm saying. Exactly.
They're both kind of aggressive mid-range decks. So when you, at the end of the day, like neither one of them is going to be just killing you by turn 6 usually, unless something really really bad has happened. But anyway, we should probably let you guys go and let you get to your logger, and we'll thank you again, both of you, and good luck the rest of the way. And we'll remind you again that we have tomorrow night we have Lore Mastery versus Rasika at 9 p.m. Eastern. We have Nate versus Ziggy at 11 p.m. Eastern, and then the 1600 Dust Bowl Saturday night 9 p.m. Eastern. Chris Plummer versus Spivey, casted by Ziggy and Matuna from 1600 Dust. Do not miss that. That is going to be a game to watch. So on behalf of Rod and both the players, I'm Wicked Good. Thank you as always for coming by, and have a great night.
See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Have a good one.